Hi everyone, welcome to Day by Day. My name is Jesus. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my anxiety. I'm also going to talk about my first encounter with a psychiatrist, and I'm going to talk about a pretty important question that that he asked me that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. But first I want to give a shout out to all the content creators out there, no matter how big or small you are. Like, this is my second video, and I've really realized how much work goes into this. Like, it's a lot of work, and I did not realize it when I first started off. But like, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes before, like, the content eventually gets out into the world that a lot of people just don't realize. And especially for people who have like a full-time job, like it's a lot of work, and it's definitely a good amount of added stress. But yeah, so shout out to everyone who's creating content out there. Like, props to you. I have even more respect than I did before for all of you out there, and keep doing what you're doing, and keep working on your craft. Also, if you see my dog Yuki, she's always gonna be in these videos. Probably she'll definitely pop in and out. In my my work day, like, she's always on my meetings, and she knows when they finish. And so, like, if you hear a dog barking, it's gonna be her. Or if you hear some squeaking toys going on, it's gonna be her. But yeah, so my first encounter with a psychiatrist, it was in undergrad. I went to U of I in Champaign, and I'm not talking about like a therapist, counselor, psychologist. I mean a psychiatrist. Yes, there are differences between all of those. I definitely won't try to describe all the difference between them. But a psychiatrist was the person who was gonna determine whether or not I was well suited to take medication for my anxiety and my depression. So yeah, it was over there while I was in Champaign. It started off because after I had like my suicidal encounter. That's what I'll call it. I got to see a therapist, and a therapist was very. I loved seeing a therapist. I still I see a therapist to this day. Like, I love therapy. Like, when you walk into a therapist's office, like, you just feel very welcomed and very calm and like very grounded. Like, the therapist's office will usually have like plants. They might have like some calming music playing. They'll have like a little Zen garden. They'll have boxes of tissues because it definitely gets emotional in there. And they'll most likely have like a candle or some incense burning. But yeah, it feels very welcoming, and they try to make you feel welcome. So like that, you're more open to talk about what's going on in your life. But yeah, like, I was seeing a therapist, and at one point they asked like, "Oh, which do you think you would want to try a medication?" And I had never tried a medication before then, because that was the first time, my like first time experiencing any type of mental illnesses. And so of course I said yeah. Like, my thoughts and emotions were so intense back then that I was just willing to try anything to try to get better. And so they scheduled me with a psychiatrist, and it's funny because like the psychiatrist was located at the pretty much like the mini hospital. It was like the clinic that was on campus, and which I thought was very weird. Like you would kind of expect like everyone within the mental health field, like every staff member within mental health, would be kind of centralized in one location. Like, it would just make more sense to do that. But I literally had to go all the way across campus to the clinic, and in order to see the psychiatrist. And so, like, I remember going, like, it was on a specific floor, and like when I got to that floor, it felt very, very clinical. Like, it felt like a hospital. Well, a very unlit hospital, because when I remember walking through the hallways of that specific floor, and it was very dark, ominous, like you could see shadows on the wall, like the walls were like this ugly mustard yellow, and so it felt very 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 ominous and weird. So like I remember going into the reception area, to the waiting room, and it was basically like an office turned into a waiting room. Like it looked like they just threw a bunch of waiting room chairs and tables within an office, and then they called it, the mental health waiting room. And there was also like this piece of glass with like separating the waiting room and the receptionist. So that just felt like, I don't know. It was like, to me, it was very, very odd. So I checked in. I sit down. There are a few other people in the waiting room, and when I was sitting there, I was kind of wondering, like, what are these other people kind of going through? Like, what are they experiencing? Like, what's on their mind? I don't know if everybody else is like that, but I definitely am. Like, I'm always curious to what people are thinking about and going through, especially when it comes to mental health. And I think more so back then it was because like I had, like my depression was so severe, and like I did have those suicidal thoughts. And when you have those thoughts, you kind of think like that you're all alone. And so like a part of me was just wondering, like, oh, are these people, do they also have suicidal thoughts? And a part of me kind of hoped that they did, because that would mean that, I wasn't alone at that time. Like, there was also people going through the same thing as I was. And so like that feeling, like, I tried to hold on to it as much as I could, because like when, like I said, when you're going through those types of emotions and through those types of thoughts, you just feel alone, and you try to cling on to any form of like, any form of resemblance to other people. And like I said, if they were going through the same thing, that meant that I was not alone. Like, I wasn't the only one going through this. And so I was in the waiting room for a while, and eventually they called my name, and I go again through the dark hallway and into this dark office again, another dark room. And that office, like, it was very ominous as well. Like, I don't know if everyone's familiar with like how, like, it seemed like if it was a interrogation room, like if there were detectives on one side of the room, and they had the spotlight on the criminal, and they were over there in the shadows, like just waiting to pop out and like ask me questions. And I sometimes think of like the Batman scene when he's like interrogating Joker. but yeah, that's pretty much like how I felt like when I sat down, and like my psychiatrist was on the other side of the desk. Like, I felt like if he just leaned back, like his head would kind of just go into the shadows, and I would only be able to see his body. So yeah, it felt very very weird. And like thinking about it now, like it makes me laugh, because I still it's so funny to think about it like that. But yeah, like that conversation with my psychiatrist was very quick. Like, it was about 5-10 minutes. And he, like I said, he basically was just trying to determine whether or not medication would be a good fit for me. And so we talked quite a bit about what I was going through, my depression, my anxiety. And he asked me a question that just, shook me. Well, at least right now, it shakes me thinking about it, because, it's a very good question. It's very interesting to think about. And I always love to like ask this question to other people, because I love hearing like people's thoughts on it. But pretty much he asked, like, do I think my depression causes my anxiety to be more intense, or do I think my anxiety causes my depression to be more intense? And yeah, so at that time, like, I had just gone through my first suicidal experience, and so like my depression was like all the way up here, and my anxiety was kind of like, you know, down here. And so at that time, I instinctively said my depression, just because those emotions and feelings were so intense that they really overshadowed my anxiety. And so yeah, so like the medication I got was, well, you know, depending on the type of medication you get, it usually helps those things. But like I think back to that question all the time, and like think back to, you know, think back to the relationship between my anxiety and my depression. And like honestly, like if you ask me that question now, like I would say the opposite. Like my anxiety has had such a hold on me for a long time. As long as I can remember. Probably back until I was like in 5th, 6th grade. That's what, like 11, 12 years old. So it's been a long time. Like I think back to my experiences back then, and like a lot of the things I went through and a lot of the things I felt are definitely rooted in like early signs of anxiety. For example, I was very scared of public speaking. Any form of like the public spotlight or like people paying attention to me. Like I was just I couldn't do it. Like I would freeze up. I would get scared. I would start okay, yeah, I would definitely start crying. And yeah, I remember when I was 8 years. Okay, so yeah, it actually goes back to when I was 8 years old. See, I think of like I recognize things every day. When I was 8 years old, I remember being in the championship game of my soccer league, and I was a goalie, and so like we ended up tying, and we went into penalties, and like that, I remember like the game ended, and we were getting ready for the penalties, and I broke down. I was so scared of being like the goalie and having like kind of the team's shoulders, like the team on my shoulders, because I was the goalie and I had to stop the penalties. And I just broke down. I started crying. I started bawling my eyes out. Started telling my mom and my dad that I didn't I didn't want to play, and that I didn't want to be the goalie because I was so scared and so nervous. And and you know, a part of me hates myself because, you know, I wasn't able to do it. Like they had to sub me out and put someone else in as like the backup goalie, and you know, we lost that game. We lost the championship, and to this day I definitely, that's one regret in my life that I have. But yeah, like, you know, I feel like that stands out because it seems so normal, but like I think about like how I felt, and it's like there's no reason why I should have felt those emotions so intense that I shut down. And well, I guess there is reasons, but it was definitely like a lot more intense than you know, you would definitely expect. So yeah, that's one of the examples. Another one, insomnia. Oh my god, insomnia has been like has had such a crazy impact on my life. Like I'm a terrible sleeper. And like back then, I struggled to fall asleep. I struggled to stay asleep. Like I was a light sleeper, so any little noise would wake me up, and then I wouldn't be able to fall back asleep. But yeah, that's definitely up one of those signs of, you know, anxiety and all that. And then the last example, I was like incredibly scared of public washrooms. And it's so funny to think about, because like I still somewhat have that fear right now, but it's rooted in my anxiety, and has such a big impact on me that like I'm definitely gonna talk about that in another video, just because like that goes like deeper into my anxiety and why like it has such a huge hold on me. And yeah, I'll go more into depth about that, like probably in a later video. But yeah, so like thinking about it now, I've missed out on quite a bit because of my anxiety. Like it's kept me from going out to places with my friends, with my family, going on certain vacations, like trying to visit particular particular, friends in different areas of not only the like state but the country, and other countries. Like it's prevented me from doing quite quite a bit, and that's it. Like that, like it has had such a hold on my life for so long that I definitely see that as the culprit for like all my other mental health issues. Well, not necessarily just that, but like it definitely like makes my depression, to go back to the question, it definitely makes my depression more intense. But yeah, like this year has kind of, it's definitely taught me quite a bit about myself. Like I went through like something at the beginning of the year, and it changed me. It definitely changed me, and I was so low that I knew I wanted to build myself up to where like my anxiety didn't have as much of a hold on me. And so like this year I've been so focused on like trying to develop these like I don't want to say coping mechanisms, but develop these strategies that I can use to kind of like get over my anxiety. Well, I don't want to say get over it also, because like I hate those words. Like get over it and anxiety and depression, they don't mix. Don't ever say that to someone who has depression, anxiety. But yeah, so I've I'm proud to say that I've been taking the necessary steps to kind of recover from my anxiety. I like that word so much more. Recover from my anxiety, and basically live with it. Anxiety and depression are a huge part of me. They're a huge part of my identity. They're pretty much the reason I am like who I am today. They're the reason I'm like recording this video right now. But yeah, so I guess like the thing I'll leave you with today is that question. I want you to think hard and long about this question. If you struggle with anxiety and depression, does your anxiety make your depression more intense, or does your depression make your anxiety more intense? You know, because if you can think about it, like I said, long and hard, then you may realize that you're kind of to trying to use these strategies that are more so for depression or more so for anxiety, when you should really probably be doing the other thing. So yeah, yeah, just try to think about it. That's some homework for you all. And yeah, I just want to say thank you again for listening to my quick story. I hope I gave you a few laughs, and I hope I gave you something to really think about. So yeah, if you like the video, just please give me a like, leave some comments, let me know what you want to hear about. I do have a lot of like crazy and interesting stories. And yeah, I'll see you next time.